applause to Jonathan Higgins, our last guest speaker of the day.
Thanks. So can everybody hear me? Yeah? Great. Okay, thank you so much. How's everybody today? Good, good. So many bright and young faces out there. So to let you all know a little bit about who I am and what we're going to be talking about today, my name is actually Dr. Jonathan Higgins, and I actually make sure that I have to let people know that because I was the youngest doctoral person in my program. And on top of that, I have also accomplished a lot. And so it is very important for you all to, before we kind of jump into the conversation, it's going to be very imperative as we talk about things today for you to make sure that you let people know who you are. This is not going to work for me, so I'm going to go ahead and use my activist voice because this ain't going to work. Yeah, so it's really important for you all to let people know. When you have a shine, please let people know about that shine, because ultimately that's going to be what holds you through the duration of this life that you have to live. So yes, my name is Dr. John Higgins. I am a speaker, curator, and influencer. We are going to get into talking about this concept of unlearning fear today. How many of you have had active conversations around what fear is? Anybody? Okay, cool. We're going to talk about unlearning fear and embracing power, because as you all may know, this world kind of thrives off of this little piece of fear that we have, right? This idea that if someone can keep you scared, they have power over you. And what I want to do today is talk to you about how do we unlearn that? How do we get to a place where we start looking at the world as a space for you to be able to say, I'm going to take this on and I'm going to slay in ways that other folks have told me that I can't. So that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today. So keep in mind that these are just labels, right? These are all labels of who I am. But it's important for me to share these labels with you today, because there have been a lot of people in my life who told me, you can't be a doctor. You're poor. You're black. You're queer. You come from a poor area of San Bernardino. Doctor, what's that? You can't do that. I've been told people that I can't be an educator. I've had a lot of people tell me, speaker, why do you want to be a speaker? Why? That doesn't pay. That doesn't do anything for you. I've been to almost every single state in the U.S. in the last year, because schools have booked me to come talk to their students about several different things. And so all of these different labels that I tack on. Writer, I've written for several media spaces. I've written for Gravity, I've written for The Root, I've written for Pride.com, I've written for very, very, very prominent places. After an educator told me, you're not a great writer. You should maybe think about this a little bit more. So every time someone tells me that I can't do something, I go, bet. And that's what I'm here to teach you, because it's not about me just getting up and saying, this is what I've done, look at me, I'm great, I'm fabulous, because I know that already. Okay? But what I am here to tell you, though, is that there are going to be a lot of folks who come for you. And sometimes they may feel like they're going to win. And so I'm here to teach you strategies as to ways when you walk out the door today, you can say, I've got a little bit of a better understanding about who I am, where I've come from, what I've been through, to be able to understand what's going to be put in front of me. Is that fair? Can we talk about that today? Cool. That's what we're going to do. So what is fear? Somebody give me a definition of what fear is. Go for it. I saw your hand first.
It's like it's something that you feel like you can't do, or something that you feel like threatens you.
Threatens you. I like that word. Somebody else back there in the red, and then we'll come here. Go ahead.
It's something that kind of scares you or makes you nervous.
Yes. Scares you, makes you nervous. We'll go here and then here, and you'll be my last person. Go for it.
Or like you said, like something that you're scared of.
Okay? Go for it.
Neurological manipulation.
Right. It's the response. That's the important piece. Thank you. Go ahead and give me a little bit of education. I appreciate it. If I had $1, I'd give it to you. This idea here is that sometimes your body has a response, right? So for me, growing up, a lot of fear was my family. My family said things, a lot of people in school said things to me, and I always walked around with this tension in my body. I was always afraid of everything and everyone, because fear had overcome me in a lot of the ways that I live. And so as I've gotten older, I'm 32 years old, and I've done a lot in the 32 years that I've been alive. What I've learned is that other folks were the people who were injecting or putting this fear into my life. And the way I was responding to it was the way that they wanted me to respond. So as long as you continue to be afraid, you have the fear, you have the nervous response, you have all of these pieces, people control you. But it's deeper than that. It's not just about who has control. It's about this idea that we have been raised to fear the yes in ourselves. Every time you think of something big, has anybody ever said, I really want to do this, I really want to be this? And somebody goes, oh no, yeah, can't. Go ahead, thank you, raise your hand. Because we are here to testify that there are people in our lives who are trying to keep us from being great. And so every time we say yes, somebody in our lives may say, no, you can't do that. But have you ever asked yourself, why can I do that? Well, what I wanted to talk to you all about is this idea that every single thing that you've been taught to fear has been something you have been taught. This is not something that you just picked up. So I like to use the example in my life. My mom one time left for work and was like, cook something for yourself. And I said, okay, I'm gonna cook something on the stove. And I went to put the pot on the stove and I burned my hand, okay? And my mom said, that's why you don't use the stove while I'm going to work. She had put the fear in me to cook, to use any type of heat in the home. So I never did. And for years, I didn't know how to cook. And when I got to college, I needed that skill. But I was very afraid of that experience. And so as I've gotten older, the same thing has kind of happened. You're a queer black man. Why do you speak so openly and honestly about that? You shouldn't do that. You should hate yourself. You should not like who you are. And I walk into spaces and I look at people and I know people read me. They go, oh, he's gay. Okay, right? I get that. But the reality of the matter is that that's something you've been taught to fear about me. And so as I've moved into this space in my life where I've said, I love who I am and I love who I'm becoming, I've started to recognize that it's other people who have to do their job to unlearn the fear about who I am, right? So when people fear your blackness, because anti-blackness is everywhere. When people fear you as a strong black woman, I see many of you in the audience, you have to look at them and go, that's you, boo. That ain't me. What you are ultimately telling me is that there's something in your life that you have not unlearned. That there's something in your life that's keeping you from loving who you are, so you can't get with me. And that's the reality. I tell people all the time, you don't have to like me, but you can Google me. But that's the life that I live because I have unlearned my fear. So, we're going to talk more about this too. What did fear look like for me? So, first, when I got to college, I was a poor black kid. I say poor because it's a word that I've learned to take on. When I was younger, I went to Cal State San Bernardino. I am a Cal State baby. But when I got there, my mom said, I initially wanted to go to university at Manoa of Hawaii. And when I got all of my paperwork for that, my mom looked at me and she said, I'm broke, I'm a single parent. If something happens to you over there, don't call me. And I had to make a decision. Do I go to another state and go to a school that I don't know anything about and risk this idea that if something did happen, that my mom couldn't take care of me? That was the first time that I started to recognize what fear really looked like. So I decided to stay local. And I went to San Bernardino and had all these different experiences that happened there. But the reality was that certain things in my life really started to kind of play out in terms of fear. And so then when I started speaking up about specifically with educators and saying, this is very anti-black, this is anti-queer, this is problematic, I have an issue with this, my educator said, I'm the teacher, you sit down and you learn what I tell you. So I began to be very fearful of using my voice, right? So then I started saying, I want to go get a master's degree. And someone said, oh, you don't have the GPA for that. I said, okay. I did it anyway. Graduated top 3 in my program. And then I turned around and said, someone said, you should go get a doctoral degree because you have a lot to say. And I said, I know. But they said, you also need the research behind what you have to say. So I did it. And it was very fearful because when I started my program, one of my educators said, I don't know if your writing is up to par here. You may need to work on that. So I did. Graduated top 2 of my program. The reality was as soon as I started to stop letting people get in my head about what I could and could not do, I started to achieve. And that's what I'm wanting to let all of you know. There are going to be people, it's a game for folks. If they can get into your head It's easy for them to stop you from becoming greater than what they see themselves. My identity, specifically being black and queer. Sometimes I feel like I'm too black to be queer, and sometimes I'm too queer to be black. But the reality is I walk in a room and I say, I'm here, and I throw glitter and I slay, and that's how it happens. Okay? But the reality is that in our community, specifically in the black community, being both of those, being black and queer, is not something that folks see as synonymous. And I get a lot of heat from it. I have 40,000 followers on Twitter. I get a lot of crap. But the reality of it, yes, right? It's all work. But the reality of the matter is that when people come for me, I just look at them and I just say, that's time you're wasting, honey. You're not getting paid, I am. So the more you talk about me, the more times my stuff comes up in Google. SEO, learn. Okay? So my identity is something I've learned to take back. But then there's also the fear in my career. There's a lot that I can talk about around that, because if you do Google me, you'll see some stuff that has transpired with me. And it could have made me stay silent. But I said instead of that, I will now create my own business and start going around and talking to everybody about the things that I was fearful to do. Just got my LLC this week. So the reality of the matter is this: every time someone tries to trip you and you stumble and you fall, you may be scared as you fall, but look up and say, you know what? I'm going to press forward. And that's what you have to do. The biggest thing is that unlearning fear is scary, because sometimes we have to acknowledge that it's not about what we know, it's what we've been taught to know. Many of you are not thinking for yourselves, and there's no shade in that. But one of my educators, when I was in my third year of my college program, he said, this is a critical thinking course. I want to know what you think. And when I would write about religion, he would say, do you believe that, or is that what you've been taught to believe? Or when I would write about what blackness means, did you believe that, or is that something you've been taught to believe? And so I'm asking you all to do that work. It is important for you to start asking yourself, what do I believe about my life? What do I know about my fears? What do I know about me? When I walk into spaces, people say, you seem so confident. I go, I am confident because I've done the work around who I want to be. This is the person that I want to be. That's what I'm challenging you to do today. You are embracing the person you are truly meant to be. I can't tell you what that looks like, but I can give you tools, and that's what I'm here to do today. So how do you unlearn fear? The most important thing to understand is that half of your wisdom is understanding what you have to unlearn. Black folks, it's unlearning the anti-blackness. Black women, it's unlearning the sexism. Men, it's unlearning the toxic masculinity. All of these pieces are things you have to unlearn. Because the reality is this: as long as you hold on to all three of those pieces, you will never be who you are supposed to be in this life. And when people say, you don't show up the way that other black men do, I go, I know, because I unlearned that. Sorry, sis. And when people say, oh, you don't come across this way, or you don't come across that way, or you don't believe in that, or you don't believe in this, I go, it's because I recognize that what I know is what I know to be true. And I have the research to prove it. ProQuest. Unlearning fear will teach you all you need to know about life and how you can embrace your personal power. So I know I've mentioned personal power a lot. I did a TEDx earlier this year around what personal power was. And it wasn't until I had my first situation with suicide, the first time that I had to unlearn the toxic relationship I had with my family, that I truly understood what personal power was. And so for me, personal power are these three important pieces. It's this idea that when you walk in your full, authentic truth, you're truly saying, I am here, I am who I am, and if you don't like it, that is your axe to grind, not mine. So when people say, I don't like you, I say, okay. What do you want me to say? I'm not going to waste my time or my energy rebuttaling that. And when people say, I don't like that you always have something to say, I go, well, don't listen. Or when people say, I don't like that you talk shit on Twitter, I go, don't follow. These are all things that you need to do. Who gonna check you? The other piece, practice loving kindness both to yourself and to others. We are hard on ourselves because we've been taught to be hard on ourselves. And specifically when you are marginalized, not someone who is ethnic, not someone who's urban, when you are marginalized. You are taught to be twice as good to only be seen as that one person, right? We have to work harder. And so because you work harder, and because you're oftentimes harder on yourself, you don't have the opportunity to see yourself as whole. And you're often mean to yourself. I was very mean to myself throughout my undergraduate experience. But when I stopped and I said, you know what, John? You're human. You're fat. It's okay. Go ahead and eat that bagel. That's when I was like, you know what? Life is a little bit easier. I didn't have to be as fearful about what other people thought about me. Lastly, acknowledge your greatness. Each one of you, I don't know you personally, but the fact that you are sitting here is great in itself. And I don't think that any of you are giving yourselves that much. I would say you don't give yourself that pat on the back to say, I am great. Because there are a lot of people who could be doing a whole bunch of other things today, and you chose to be here. That's great. But the reality of the matter is that when you can sit back and you can say, I am great just the way I am today, I'm learning, I'm on a journey, I'm wanting to learn and do more things. That's when you are acknowledging your personal power. I can't fix your problems, but I can help you. Okay? There are going to be a lot of people in your life who tell you that you can't do something. There are going to be a lot of people who say you can't do something in your life. And the reality is that you should do it anyway. I have been told several times, again, I always go back to this. This was the pivotal experience in my life. When I was in my last year of college, I wrote a paper. An educator came back to me and said, this is the worst paper I have ever come across. I went back and changed my major and stayed in school for an additional 2 years because I opted and felt like English was not something I was good at. I let her have that control over me. I've been published 35 times in the last year. I have a book that is in the works. It was for me, it's not for me to tell you what I'm doing. It's for me to let you know the journey of how I got there. And so when my last article dropped with Pride.com, I sent her an email and said, thank you so much for telling me that this could never happen. Because now it's trending. So it's viral now. Thanks. And it's not that I'm full of myself, but it's the reality of it. If I don't root for me, who else will?
Exactly.
Who else will? So do everything you want to do. The last piece, I'm a very big Audre Lorde person. If you didn't pick up the first quote, it's from her as well. And it's ultimately, I tell people all the time, I'm struggling with what I should name my book, and I want to call it Doing the Lord's Work. But that's not But the reality is this. I tell people this all the time, specifically when you are marginalized. Folks are scared of you as soon as you walk in the room. You don't even have to say anything. Society has taught the world to be afraid of you. And oftentimes, folks will teach you to be silent around that fear. Because they want you to stay silent because, again, it provides the power. But when you start to embrace your personal power and you say, I'm going to say what I need to say, and I'm going to say it the way I want to say it, the reality is you become unfearful. Zia Neale Hurston says, they will kill me if I don't say what I need to say. They will kill me if I stay silent. I tell people all the time, they're going to kill me if I stay silent, they're going to kill me if I speak up, so I might as well say something. And that is the reality. We do not have time, this is where my activist mind is coming out, we do not have time to be quiet. If your educators are not including you in conversations, ask them why. If your family is telling you you can't do something, say, I'm sorry you didn't feel like you had the opportunity, but I gotta go. It's real. Because at the end of the day, you have one life, you have one opportunity to make all of your dreams come true. Now, I can't tell you they all will happen. There are a lot of dreams that I have, meaning Beyonce is one. I'm working towards it. But the reality of the matter is that every day when I wake up and I say, I'm good enough today to get to that point, I'm doing the work that I need to do to embrace my personal power. So I'm challenging all of y'all, not only one, to add me on social media and follow me, but the other piece is to continue to do what you were called to do in this life. Whether it's make a difference, whether it's to create something that's not here, whether it's to get many degrees like I've done and go forward and teach other people about how they can do the same thing. I'm challenging you all to do that because that's what you're here for. With that being said, I want to say thank you.